sort of famous as the unfilmable book, impossible to translate into the language of film. You had the task of translating it into the language of music. How daunting of a task was that, and how did you approach that challenge?
I mean, it wasn't daunting at all. It was just fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, because those kind of challenges are what I live for. So it means I just got to really experiment. It's like starting with nothing is what I love most. Mm-hmm. And when you're working with a collaborator like Noah, he makes it even more fun because he doesn't give you restrictions. He's like, let's try this, let's just try anything. And it's one of those projects that I come out of going, this is why I love composing. Because some projects can be excruciatingly difficult. Even if you love what happens at the end, the process can be brutal. And this is one of those where the process was actually just enjoyable and creative. And I said, oh yeah, this does, every now and then, it does work that way.
Was it totally carte blanche, or did Noah say, these are a handful of things that I need?
Oh, no. Well, these are things that I'm thinking.
Okay.
And so it definitely was a collaboration. Mm-hmm. And, I was thinking of something that was 80s inspired, like the thrillers, the electronic thrillers, and say, oh, great. And I started writing music that was like electronic music from the 80s, through my own imagination. Mm-hmm. I loved it. So he would give me ideas, and I would just run with them and filter them back to him, and we would just toss it up and back. Yeah. It was it felt like a very good collaboration.
Because this is 80s, it's, the book is like a treatise on 80s pop culture. Does this bring you back to, Oingo Boingo days or anything like that?
No, because the 80s that I was delving into was more the 80s of a electronic techno thriller. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like a Scorsese's, there's different, not Scorsese, I'm thinking Friedkin, Sorcerer, things like that. So there was...
I love that movie. Such an underrated gem.
It is. Yeah. So when I was thinking of the 80s, I was thinking more from cinematic 80s than pop music.
Like Alan Parker movies.
Yeah, exactly right. So, we would touch on inspired little homage to Giorgio Moroder or an homage to Tangerine Dream. But that was only part of the score. And other times it was like, let's get Copland-esque and Americana, and then let's just get very classical here and express it that way. So it really touched on so many things.
And the last question is, the movie ends with an LCD sound system track. Were you involved with that at all?
No. That was already written when I came on, and so I knew it was going to end with that. It was like, great.
So did you then form how you made your music leading up to that?
No, because I wanted that to come in like a surprise.
Okay.
So I really didn't want to precede it with, this is going to happen. I really felt it's better that just comes boom and makes you go, what?
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to see it. Last question, do you think you're going to work with Noah again?
I so hope so. It was a great experience. I loved him. He's great.
So this is the ultimate postmodern, absurd novel. You're known for making grounded family dramas, but at the same time, this is about a family, right?
Right.
So what are maybe the overlaps with this movie and the rest of your filmography? What's new? What's maybe off-brand? And if you could just maybe expound on that.
Well, I think what you said. I think it is about a family, and about a family. The gap between what we say and what we mean, or what we say and what we feel, or what we think about ourselves and who we really are. I mean, those are things I think I've explored in a lot of my movies. Family mythologies is something that I think are in a lot of my movies too. The things that we tell ourselves about, parents tell their children, and children have to unlearn them later, and in this case you have all of that, but then you also have family, I think in some ways as a microcosm of the culture. Mm-hmm. You have, that line, family's the cradle of the world's misinformation. You have, essentially the kids spouting facts and saying things that, we don't know if they're real or not. And after a while, I think you kind of lose track within yourselves, and you create your own facts. And I think that's something that's both true of a family and something we see is also true of the American culture at large.
So this is also your first foray into adapting a novel. This sort of like sacred text. I mean, personally, it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
Love Don DeLillo. Do you think you'll ever, adapt a book again? Maybe, Libra or Underworld or, who knows?
I mean, when I decided to adapt it, I wasn't thinking, oh, I'm doing something different. I was responding to something that felt very alive to me, and I thought felt very much spoke to the moment I felt we were in. I mean, I happened to be rereading it when the pandemic arrived, and so I kind of took it on the same way I would take on something that I had already, had in my head. But of course, you have both the benefit of having essentially the collaborator of the book, and then you also have the challenge of having to translate it into something that's, cinematic and not literary.
People trying to adapt this book forever. I know James L. Brooks tried to do it, a billion years ago. How did it take so long, and why was now the moment to do it, and how did it finally happen, get over that hurdle?
Well, I think now it feels particularly germane. I mean, we've just come out of a pandemic, and actually the film was made during the pandemic. And this is a story which takes place under the shadow of a toxic cloud, an event in which a poisonous gas or cloud is released, and that feels very people having to deal with toxicity, which we've been dealing with for the last. So it feels particularly relevant and germane. I think that may be one reason, but also we've got a director who has the weight, the power, the intelligence, the sophistication, a brilliant writer-director who's able to find his way through. Jim Brooks is a brilliant director too, brilliant writer, and he couldn't. That's no knock on him,
Right.
Noah, I think, brought the experience. This is a film about, through the pandemic, confronting death, and in facing death, and actually confronting it, rediscovering life, and rediscovering the love that had been compromised prior to and during the pandemic. That's a beautiful story. And I think Noah, having gone through the pandemic, for him it was a very personal experience. And so I think it wasn't something that he was looking at a third person, even though there are so many other things. It's about cinema and iconography and imagery of media, which again relates today, and how social media and the proliferation of imagery and those are sort of more heady things, but just on a primal emotional level, I think that Noah could really relate to this from very recent experience.
So this is, Noah's, indie director. This book is, a famous book, but it's not like Harry Potter. So how did you? It's a big budget movie to realize the vision. So how are you and everyone else sure you can make this, $80 to $100 million gamble and know that Noah was going to pull through? I
don't know what the budget is. I don't want to say what the budget was, but I don't think that's entirely accurate. But I produced the Harry Potter films, and Alfonso had made Y Tu Mamá También, and then came in to do Harry Potter. David Yates had made TV, and then comes and does it. Actually, Chris Nolan made, a small film, Mephisto, and then does Batman. It's not that different. I really believe if someone has a vision, whether you're making a small film or a big film, it's very similar. There are just more moving pieces. And Noah surround himself with people who were as ambitious with him, who had experience. And so it's really nice. I don't think that just because he had made independent, smaller films, as it were, that was a hindrance or an obstacle in any way.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Really excited to see the film. I'm not just saying this, but it literally is my favorite book, so I'm really excited.
Well, I hope
I love Noah Baumbach, and so it's in good hands.
You can say, it really is in good hands.
Yeah.
I think. But you know what I mean about, it's a book with multiple tones,
right.
and about
it
so
like
many
switches gears. It's like the right person had to do it.
And it's comedy, and it's dramatic, and it's intimate, and it's epic, and it's about...
It's like earnest and cynical and like Baumbach.
Satirical. And
it's about like a family, but it's like absurd and weird and
it's all those
sci-fi and like...
It's all those things. And also, and what's so great about seeing it as a film is some of that image. Yes, there's the iconography of the sort of the worshipping of the movie theater, of images, of how we culture, how we define, how we learn how to think and feel through imagery that we see in movies, for example. That's a part of it. And the supermarket as a place of worship or ritual. All of that's in there from the book, and it's just actually seeing that as a movie.
I'm really
Enjoy
excited.
it.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it.